Welcome back everyone. In this video, we're going to see what happens when smoking a brisket at 95 degrees Celsius for the whole cook. Right, so to make life easier, we're going to be using our pellet smoker. So we'll open our hopper lid and fill it with pellets. Then we'll shut our lid, turn our smoker on, rotate it to 95 degrees Celsius and start it up. All right, so we're working with this big, beautiful 8 kilo brisket. What I look for when I'm choosing a brisket is a nice thick flat side, which this one certainly has. As you can see, it's pretty much the same thickness as the point. That means it's going to cook nice and even. We've got a good coverage of fat on the flat side, and it's got some beautiful marbling in there too. So we'll get started on trimming this bottom side up. I've got 2 bowls here. I'm going to keep one for the fat we'll render down later on in the cook, and then one for some trimming we can turn into some burger mince. So all I'm going to do is just take any excess fat off the bottom. That can go straight into our fat bowl. Now if you're unsure, always trim a little bit lighter than what you think. A little bit of excess fat is only going to help it stay a bit more moist and juicier, because if you trim too much fat off, then you run the risk of it drying out. Right, now I'm pretty happy with most of that. Just want to swing it around here, because there's always a big chunk of fat where the flat and the point meet. This one doesn't actually look too bad, but what we want to do is just find it, run our knife just up against it like so. Sometimes it'll be really fatty in there and you kind of got to scoop the fat out, but this one we should be able to get away with pretty good. So we're just going to basically straighten this edge off, keep working and straightening that edge off right down the side here. Put that to the side for now, and we'll work on separating the fat from the meat later on. Now that's looking pretty good. We might come back to square off some of this thinner edges after we've done this top section. So for now, I want to leave a nice coverage of fat on this flat side. I can feel that it's not very thick, so I don't really need to do much trimming. You can already see some meat coming through here. You can sort of just feel around. I can feel the fat is a lot thicker and harder right here as opposed to over here. I just want to round this thin edge off, because that's just going to potentially overcook and burn anyway. That's perfect for burgers. And then as we get into the fattier point, you can always go a little bit heavier with your trimming, because the fat is going to be much thicker through this part. But you also want to be trimming in a way that it stays nice and aerodynamic, so we don't get any juice sort of pooling up on this brisket, because that would prevent us from getting that beautiful bark. All right, that's feeling much better through there. Maybe just a tiny bit more off. Now we're just going to work on the shape of this brisket. This thin side here, just going to square straight up. I'm just going to basically work my way around this brisket. I'm already happy with this side. This thin edge here, I'll work around just like so. I can go straight in for burger mince. Now this is taking on an absolutely beautiful shape. I'm super happy with how this has been trimmed. It's nice and even, really aerodynamic. I reckon I'm just going to quickly separate this trimming, and then we can get to seasoning the brisket. All right, so now we've got our bowl of trim we can use for mince, and then our bowl of fat we'll render down later on. All right, now before we season this brisket, we're just going to hit it with some yellow mustard. That's really going to help our rubs stick to the meat. Now if you don't have yellow mustard, you could just use a little bit of olive oil. It's really not going to matter. Doesn't impact the flavour at all. And then if you've got a favourite rub or rub combination, go ahead and use that. But we're going to be using a combination of my steak shooter spicy and beef bounce. I absolutely love this combo. You get some savoury and sweetness from the steak shooter spicy, and obviously a good little spice kick, and then a bunch of savoury beef complementing flavours from the beef bounce. So I'm just going to do a thin layer of steak shooter spicy all over, and then we'll flip it back over and top it off with this beef bounce. I'm really keen to see how this brisket turns out. This will be the lowest and slowest I've ever done a brisket. Interested to see how this texture comes out, what sort of temperature it's going to hit that probe tenderness, how good this bark is going to be on it, and just how good it eats in general. We'll sort of mop up any rub we've spilt on the cutting board just on that top side before we turn it over. And the other thing I love about topping off with beef bounce is it'll give this brisket a really nice bark because it's got quite a heavy salt and pepper base. Right, now our brisket's all seasoned up. We'll wait for our smoker to hit temperature and then we'll get it in. All right, now we're at temperature. We'll open our lid. We'll get this big, beautiful brisket in. I'm just going to get a drip tray underneath. Then we'll shut our lid. And it is now 9:30 p.m. So we'll let this go overnight and we'll be back in the morning to check on it. All right, we are pretty much 10 hours in, as you can see. It's almost 7:30 a.m. This has been going since 9:30 p.m. last night. Actually still got a good amount of pellets left. It's probably used 2/3 of what I put in there last night. Now let's have a look at our brisket. That is looking incredible. Let's see where our internals at. Sitting at about 82 in the point, 80 in the flat. Interesting that the thicker point is further ahead than the flat, but they're within a couple of degrees of each other. So that is all good. That bark is looking incredible. I reckon we're going to leave this unwrapped for the whole cook. While we're here, I'm just going to move our tray over to the side a little bit and get our tray of fat to start rendering down on the bottom shelf there. I reckon we've still got at least another hour or two left of this cook, so we'll shut our lid and let it keep going. All right, we're a bit over 12 hours into this cook now, and I reckon this brisket is done. That is probing really nice there. And we're right around 93, 94 degrees Celsius internal. Now sometimes I won't be happy with probe tenderness until around 96 to 98 degrees Celsius internal. Because this one's been going lower, slower and longer, that fat has rendered down and this is probing nice at a slightly lower internal temperature. So now I'm just going to carefully get this out, get this onto 2 layers of foil. I'm just going to let that steam off for a few minutes so it stops the cooking process, and then we'll wrap it up to rest it. All right, and then the rendered fat from one of those drip trays, we're just going to pour over our brisket, and then we're going to wrap it up nice and tight. Might even put an extra layer of foil just going around the other way. And then I'm going to put that on one of my Cambro trays, and then this is going to go into the Cambro. If you don't have a Cambro, you can just rest your brisket in an esky, or if you don't have a big enough esky, you can always rest it in the oven on its lowest setting. And now that's going to have a good rest for around 4 to 5 hours. Right, and after a good 5-hour rest, we can get this out and slice it up. Just so you can see, even after all that time, we're still at a nice eating internal temperature of 67-ish degrees Celsius. All right, now I cannot wait to unwrap this, slice it open and have a taste. All right, so we've got the flat this end, the point this end. So I'm just going to start slicing from this flat side. And you already know it's going to be a good brisket when your end slice is nice and juicy already. All right, let's test a piece. Now that is moist from end to end. Look at the bend on that. Fat has rendered down perfectly. That is an incredible slice of brisket. So we're just going to put that one back and take a few more slices off until we start getting a bit further into that point muscle. All right, now we're right into this point muscle here. We're going to start slicing it this way. And then once we get most of the way through that half of the slice, this sort of chunk that's left on top is mainly fat. There is still some good meat under there. So what we're going to do is just sort of turn it over, sort of knock that fat out. And then we've got some beautiful point end or burnt end cubes. And that's just fat on the end there. But these little burnt ends, probably the best bite you're going to get on a brisket. And then this bit that we've got left, we'll just tidy up a little bit of that fat on top. And then we can continue slicing that the way we were slicing the flat initially. All right, now this brisket looks good, it smells good, the texture looks good. Let's see how it tastes. All right, so we'll try a piece from the flat. Look at that texture. That is a bloody good brisket. Awesome flavour, Good subtle smoke in there, juicy, perfectly tender. That is a good brisket, especially from the flat end. All right, now we'll try a piece from the point end. This is going to be good, I already know it. Now that is a phenomenal brisket, around a 13-hour cook time, and we didn't even use a full hopper of pellets. If I'm looking for an easy, stress-free cook, I'll definitely be doing that again. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, but for now, that's the end of the video, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.